At 2:17 local time, on a night in April 2026, a Russian locomotive engineer is hauling 14 cars of diesel fuel and artillery ammunition through occupied Crimea at 50 kilometers per hour. He's drinking coffee from a thermos and watching a dark rail corridor scroll past his windshield. 35 kilometers away, Ukrainian operators from HUR's Pre-Medi Special Unit are watching his engine glow white-hot on a thermal feed piped through encrypted Starlink connections. In exactly 40 seconds, his locomotive will become the 5th confirmed kill.
Oh mon Dieu! Oh mon Dieu! Oh my God!
In a campaign that has been strangling every Russian supply line into Crimea for months. And right now, he has no idea they're watching. But this operation didn't start tonight. It started weeks earlier, when the Ghosts began doing something that would make everything else possible. They started killing radars. Somewhere in occupied Crimea in late February, a 48YA6-K1 podlit radar station is scanning low-altitude airspace. This is Russia's frontline detection system for cruise missiles and drones. It sees targets flying below conventional radar coverage, the exact flight profile Ukrainian strike drones use to approach their targets. Its operators are watching clean scopes. Airspace looks quiet. Then a Pre-Medi drone, launched from a position the operators will never identify, descends through the detection floor and impacts the antenna array. The thermal camera footage, later released by HUR, shows the radar installation erupting in a white flash. The scope goes dark. A 50-kilometer detection bubble over southern Crimea just vanished. 3 days later, the Ghosts hit a Kastuk 2E2 radar, 80 kilometers east. This one monitors airspace and identifies aircraft at extremely low altitudes, feeding tracking data to Pantsir and Tor air defense batteries. Without the Kasta, those batteries are shooting blind, which is roughly as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Then a Sopka coastal surveillance radar. Then the 96L6, the radar that feeds targeting data directly to the S-400 Triumph system. The S-400 is Russia's crown jewel air defense, capable of engaging targets at 400 kilometers. But without its 96L6 feed, the missiles have no guidance solution. $2 million interceptors with nowhere to go. The Ghosts aren't being subtle about this. Over March and into April, they launched strike after strike. Serval command and control vehicles that coordinate air defense across entire sectors, electronic warfare stations jamming Ukrainian drone frequencies, relay nodes supporting Jiran and Gerbera-type loitering munitions, a component of Russia's GLONASS satellite navigation system. Open-source analysts will later count nearly 80 Ukrainian strikes against Russian air defense systems in March and April alone, a 300% increase over the previous period. Crimea accounts for 100 out of 173 confirmed strikes. Each destroyed radar opens a corridor. Each dead EW station removes a layer of jamming. Each wrecked command vehicle severs coordination between batteries that are now operating isolated, confused, and increasingly blind. The Ghosts are not randomly hitting targets. They're cutting lanes through Russia's sensor network like a surgeon cutting paths through tissue. Lanes that drones will fly through later. Lanes that lead directly to Russia's rail lines. April 6th, night, the Kerch Strait. The Slavyanin railway ferry is making its crossing from Russia's Taman Peninsula toward Crimea. Its cargo holds are loaded with fuel, lubricants, weapons, ammunition, and military equipment. This is the last railway ferry operating in the strait. Russia stopped running military cargo across the Kerch Bridge rail section months ago, after repeated SBU strikes turned the crossing into a liability. The Slavyanin is the final lifeline. HUR drones hit it. The ferry had already been struck once in March, but remained afloat. This time, it doesn't survive. The vessel is put permanently out of service. Every ton of military supply entering Crimea now flows through one route. A single overland railway running from Rostov-on-Don through occupied Mariupol and Berdyansk to Jankoy in northern Crimea. Russia built this line specifically because they couldn't trust the Kerch Bridge anymore. Putin announced it at a concert celebrating the annexation of Crimea.
Mariupol and Berdyansk has been restored. We will continue this work, and soon trains will run directly to Sevastopol. And this will be another alternative route to Krumskoye for the Crimean Bridge.
Bold move, announcing your only remaining supply line on national television. The Ghosts now know exactly where to look. Mid-April, approximately 0200 hours. Primary reconnaissance drones have been loitering over Crimean rail corridors for hours. Modified platforms with extended flight endurance and digital zoom, pushed to 56 times magnification. The thermal feeds show everything. Rail junctions, switching stations, the heat signatures of idling locomotives waiting for clearance, and moving trains. The first target materializes on the operator's screen. A Russian freight train moving southeast through the Crimean interior. The locomotive's diesel engine reads 47 degrees Celsius on thermal, glowing white against the cool night landscape. Behind it, tanker cars show temperature variations consistent with liquid fuel. Military flat cars carry shapes that match ammunition crates and vehicle components. Each tanker holds 60 to 70 tons of diesel. 12 cars means roughly 840 tons, enough to keep 3 Russian armored battalions operational for 10 days. The strike drone is already airborne. It carries a shaped charge warhead, a copper-lined cone that focuses explosive energy into a penetrating jet, traveling at thousands of meters per second. The drone descends to low altitude and enters one of the corridors the Ghosts carved through Russia's radar network over the past 6 weeks. Where a podlet would have detected it at 50 kilometers and vectored a Pantsir battery to intercept, there's silence. Where a Kasta 2E2 would have fed tracking data to a Tor M2 launcher, there's a burned-out antenna housing and nothing else. The drone closes on the locomotive. 50 kilometers per hour means the target crosses nearly 14 meters every second. The operator calculates closure rate, crosswind, approach angle. He has one shot. Miss by 3 meters and you hit empty frame. Miss by 10 and you crater gravel while 840 tons of Russian supplies roll on into the Crimean night. He doesn't miss. The shaped charge detonates against the engine housing. The copper jet liquefies steel at 2,800 degrees Celsius, punching through the engine block and igniting diesel in the fuel reservoir. The locomotive shudders, loses power, begins trailing fire and black smoke. 14 cars of military cargo grind to a halt on tracks that suddenly go nowhere. Strike 1.
Hours later, different rail corridor. The Russians are alert now. The first strike triggered heightened security across Crimean rail lines. Armed patrols are riding flat cars. Someone in the Russian command structure has figured out that drones are hunting their trains. Congratulations, only took one exploding locomotive. The Ghosts don't care. Their second target is a fuel tanker car, specifically. Not the locomotive this time. They want this fuel to burn. The approach is identical. Thermal reconnaissance, encrypted satellite data link, low-altitude ingress through a dead radar corridor. Russian soldiers on the flat cars are scanning the sky with their eyes and AK-74s, looking for something they can hear. At altitude, the strike drone produces barely a whisper above the noise of a moving freight train. They'll never hear it coming. The shaped charge impacts the tanker's sidewall. At 2,800 degrees, the copper jet doesn't just penetrate. It vaporizes a hole through 15 millimeters of steel and hits 60 tons of diesel on the other side. The fuel doesn't leak. It erupts. A fireball blooms across the thermal camera, whiting out the feed for a full second before the operator adjusts gain. The temperature inside the car exceeds 4,000 degrees within seconds. Adjacent cars begin heating. The interconnected ventilation systems between fuel cars, designed for pressure equalization during loading, become a highway for destruction. Within 20 seconds, burning vapors have ignited the cars on either side. Strike 2, and the fire is still growing. The third, fourth, and fifth strikes unfold across April. Different corridors, different nights, each one targeting locomotives or fuel tankers on moving freight trains. The Ghosts rotate through attack routes, vary timing, and never hit the same corridor twice in a row. Russian logistics planners are now treating every train movement through Crimea as a potential death sentence. Some trains are running with reduced loads, some are running at night with no lights. None of it matters when the enemy is watching through thermal cameras that read engine temperature from 35 kilometers away. During one of the later strikes, the drone is on its terminal approach when something changes. A Russian soldier on the ground has spotted it. He shoulders a manpads, a shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile, aims at the incoming drone, and fires. The missile streaks upward, its infrared seeker locking onto the thermal signature of the drone's electric motors. The primary operator sees it happening in real time on his feed. A missile climbing toward his aircraft. He throws the drone into evasive maneuvers, sharp turns that force the seeker to recalculate its intercept solution. The manpads was designed for faster, hotter targets, helicopters, low-flying jets. The drone's thermal footprint is tiny by comparison. The seeker struggles to maintain lock through the erratic movement.
The missile passes behind the drone and detonates harmlessly, and the operator, the absolute madman, turns the drone back toward the train. He reacquires the target, lines up the approach, and completes the strike. A surface-to-air missile just missed his aircraft, and his response was to keep going. That's not standard operating procedure. That's a personality trait.
But the ghosts aren't limiting themselves to rail corridors. While the train strikes are rolling through April, Primary launches a simultaneous campaign against everything Russia has floating, flying, or standing in Crimea. Night of April 18th to 19th, Sevastopol Bay. The targets are two of Russia's largest remaining landing ships moored in the harbor. The Project 775 Yamal, 112.5 meters long, built in 1988, cargo capacity of 500 tons, including armored vehicles and troops. Estimated value over $80 million. And the Project 1171 Nikolai Filchenkov, built in 1975, cargo capacity over 1,000 tons, estimated value over $70 million. Combined, $150 million of Russian naval logistics capability, sitting in Sevastopol Bay like floating warehouses. Primary drones cross the harbor. The same air defense network that should have detected them at range has been systematically shredded over the past 2 months. The drones strike both ships, the Yamal and the Filchenkov, are left completely inoperable. In the same operation, the Ghosts put a Podlet K-1 radar station worth approximately $5 million into the ground. 3 targets, 1 night, $155 million in damage. And they still weren't done. Days later, a B-12 Chaika amphibious aircraft, one of fewer than 20 still operational in the entire Russian military, takes a drone strike on an airfield in Crimea. 3 Project 05060 assault boats, compact high-speed vessels designed to carry 10 troops at 40 knots for rapid landing operations, are destroyed alongside a support vessel and a hangar storing more assault boats. The Ghost hit a communication and power supply station for a Duran UAV repeater, an MR-2313 Vigach coastal radar, more serval command and control systems, a fuel reservoir at an Atan Company oil depot, hitting the supply chain that feeds Russian vehicles across the peninsula. May 5th, Armyansk, northern Crimea. Drones hit a Russian FSB border guard facility. The Crimean Wind Telegram channel reports the aftermath. Half the FSB building is completely gone. Not damaged, not partially collapsed. Gone. May 6th, HUR releases the footage. The thermal video shows it all. Locomotives burning in the Crimean darkness. Fuel tankers erupting in white-hot fireballs that bloom across the screen like flowers made of superheated diesel. Rail infrastructure warping under thermal stress. 5 precision strikes on moving trains. Every one delivered through corridors that the same unit spent months carving through Russia's air defense network. Podlets killed to open the lanes. Castus destroyed to blind the batteries. S-400 radars wrecked to ensure no interceptor could touch the strike drones as they descended on locomotives hauling the fuel and ammunition that Russia's southern front depends on to keep fighting. The economics tell the final story. Each strike drone costs somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000. A single Russian locomotive costs over $2 million. A loaded fuel train represents tens of millions. The Slavyanin ferry, the Yamal and Filchenkov landing ships, the BE-12 aircraft, the radar stations, the FSB building, the assault boats, the fuel depot. Somebody in Moscow is looking at the April damage report right now and seriously considering a career change. So here's the question. The Ghosts blinded Russia's radars, sank their ships, burned their trains, destroyed their aircraft, leveled an FSB building, and evaded a manpad launch, all in a single month, with drones, through encrypted Starlink, in territory Russia has occupied for over a decade. What happens when Ukraine gets more of them? Drop your answer in the comments. Bye for now.